Welcome back, everybody. If you're new, my name is Nicholas, and this is Investing Against the Grain. All right, in today's episode, we're going to review the Tesla topics that were discussed during the Ron Barron and Elon Musk interview today during Ron Barron Capital Fund event. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and clipped out the most Tesla-related notable things that I thought would be interesting to talk about. So we're going to look at those. And I've also gone ahead and 2x the speed. So it might sound a little weird at first, but you'll get used to it. And we're just going to try to get through this as fast as possible. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I spent the time to go through this and edit everything so you don't have to spend an hour plus watching it. If you want to, go ahead, check it out anyways. It was great. He talks about a lot of other things I'm not going to really cover here too much, but I picked, kind of the main points that I thought were Tesla related or Tesla affected. So with that said, let's get started.
And without Elon, there would not be electric cars. Nobody who makes cars wants to make electric cars. They're being forced to make them. In fact, every time they sell an electric car, they sell one fewer car that they make money on. And they have all that money invested in plants to make those other cars. So nobody wants to have these cars except for him. And everybody thought he was going to fail. And one of the things you said is that patents are for the weak. And you share your patents. Yeah. And with other companies, of course, on the other hand, when they get your patents, you're 2 or 3 years ahead of them.
So there are definitely roles for patents. In the case of Tesla, our goal is to advance sustainable energy. And so we can't just do it by ourselves. We need the whole industry to go that way. So we gave them out patents for free in order to help them accelerate electric vehicles.
And here you're telling us how you want to make cars for $20,000 a piece. How do you do that?
Well, we've not formally announced our next car program, so I can't talk too much about our upcoming vehicle program or programs that have not been announced, but we do expect to make cars that are more affordable than the current Model 3 or Model Y. So, and a big factor in this is, I think by far the biggest factor is autonomy, in terms of the value of a car, because right now, cars get driven for about 10 or 12 hours a week, like maybe 1.5 hours a day. So there's 168 hours a week, and so if they were autonomous, you could probably the cars could drive for 50 or 60 hours. So we'd see a 5-fold increase in the utility of the car that could do autonomy. This is a really, really gigantic thing. It would also mean that we wouldn't need anywhere near as many parking lots, and this would also be helpful for the environment because you would need far fewer cars.
I misspoke. It was a $7 billion investment for a plant that makes $1 million cars a year that makes $15 billion a year in profit. So you invest $7 billion and you make $15 billion a year. Who does that?
All right, a lot to unpack there. So let's talk about a little bit. So first of all, Ron Barron's spot on. Without Tesla, without Elon Musk, there would be no electric cars today. They are essentially forcing every other car company to change up their model, change up their R&D towards electrification. All thanks to them. 2, Ron Barron goes ahead and starts to prod Elon regarding this next iteration, this next platform of a vehicle. Now, I'm still of the mindset that the robotaxi and the cheaper alternative car will probably be the same platform, or at least a lot of the R&D will go into both. But Elon chooses not to dive too deep into it, mainly because they haven't really announced it. But however, Elon did open the door to that conversation during the earnings call. So fair game for Ron here. Now, Elon goes ahead and reiterates his thoughts about full self-driving, about autonomy. Funny story, my dad's actually been sending me some clips of him experiencing FSD beta for the first time. I'll probably put a little video together of some of his experiences for tomorrow. He's already been bad. He already got yelled at on some of the alerts, so it's kind of funny to watch. But he himself is experiencing the power of FSD beta. Is it ready? No. Is it complete? No. But the point is, it's getting there. It can be used anywhere in North America, and it's a general solution. And once you start using it, you really start to understand the impact of it. And we'll talk about FSD more in a little bit here. Finally, Ron Barron, who is, you have to understand what he does, right? He takes other people's money and he allocates it in the best way possible. And by investing in Tesla, he's referring to the actual factory. So to build a gigafactory, call it anywhere from $5 to $7 billion to build it. And in return, Tesla is earning about $15 billion a year on those factories. So you invest $7 billion, and then essentially in perpetuity, you get $15 billion plus from that factory. That's nuts. That's a good return on investment, on invested capital. So that's what Ron's gained to here, and all very excellent points.
For a plant that makes things, manufacturing. And so the way this is accomplished is, so you're doing it with casting right now. And casting half of the car, you soon cast the other half of the car. And other companies, why don't they try? Why don't they try to do what we're doing? In fact, one of the executives of another automobile company wanted me to introduce her to you. And you did that once at a meeting, and now she wants to come visit with her director of engineering at our plant in Boston. And I presume when I asked you, you're going to say, yeah, bring her on, because you innovate so fast, by the time anyone copies what we're doing, it's on to something else. What else is there? When you're casting, what else is there that enables us to make it cheaper? Are we eliminating a lot of other parts? Are we eliminating functions? What are we doing to do that? How do we sell a car that's so cheap?
I think the full explanation, or at least an accurate explanation, would take a long time, because to first approximation, a car is made of 10,000 unique parts and process steps. And Tesla's really, I think at this point, probably the best at manufacturing in the auto industry, which I think what nobody was expecting.
Probably the history of the world.
Probably. Well, I've got this like first principles algorithm that I find to be very helpful in the design and manufacturing of anything. And people here may find it helpful. The first thing you should do is make the requirements that you've been given less dumb. Whatever constraints and requirements were given, they were to some degree dumb, and you want to make them less dumb. If you don't start with this, then you get the right answer to the wrong question. And the requirements must be given from a person who can explain the requirement, not from a department, because then you don't know who to talk to. Then step 2 is delete the part or delete the process step. This sounds extremely obvious, and yet over and over again we've found that parts were not needed. They were just put in there just in case, or by mistake, or there was a step that someone thought was needed, but was not actually needed. This sounds insanely obvious, but we've deleted so many parts from the car that did nothing. So it's a very difficult engineering challenge. So that's kind of the defensive reason to ensure that life is not just...
So he's about to talk about SpaceX, so let's give that 1 second. This whole idea of the way of thinking about it, right? First, figure out what the right problem is, but that right problem cannot come from someone who's a department head, because they have their own bias, right? And that goes back to an example, like if you're sick and you go to a oncologist, they're going to find cancer. If you go to a cardiologist, they're going to find heart disease, right? So that's his point about it can't be a department head. You want somebody who has a global perspective about what's going on, all right? Now, let's take his same logic here about, getting rid of stupid processes, stupid ideas, stupid parts, and apply that to full self-driving. This is why they're getting rid of radars, why they didn't use LiDARs, why they're getting rid of sonar. In other words, what Elon is talking about is the same thing that we heard from Andre Karpathy on the Lex Friedman podcast. We need to get rid of entropy. All these other things, all these other, different type of sensors are signal, they're noise, they're chaos, entropy. It's a waste. It's inefficient. And Elon's saying the same thing. We need to get rid of parts. There are all these parts that we had that we didn't need. Nobody could explain why we had it, what it was for. One department said it was the other department needed it. Turns out nobody needed any of these parts. Entropy. Entropy in the system is what you got to get rid of, and that's what Elon is solving for. And that's what a lot of companies don't solve for, especially in manufacturing space. Now he's going to talk about a little bit about SpaceX and really the mission around why it's so important for SpaceX and for the reusability of rockets and getting to Mars and everything. And I honestly cut out a lot of it because it's stuff we've heard over and over, but he talks about why it's important. There's 2 points, right? First, he talks about, the defense, to essentially have a disaster recovery approach when it comes to the human race and consciousness, a single candle in an abyss of darkness. We don't want that candle, that flame to go out. But the second point he mentions here, I just think it's a very powerful message that I want to echo as often as I can. So listen to this and listen to the optimism and hope and in this, literally in the midst of this travesty of a world that we're living in, we need to have a beacon of light, a true north, a something to be hopeful for about the future. And that's what Elon talks about here.
Consciousness is just not only on Earth. That's the defensive reason to protect the future of consciousness. Then the other big reason, I think, is that it's exciting and it's adventurous and it's inspiring. It makes you think positively about the future, And life can't just be about solving one problem or another. There need to be reasons to be inspired. There are reasons that move your heart and say, yes, the future's going to be great when you wake up in the morning. I can't wait to see what happens next. And I think that's humanity go to Mars. Even if you don't yourself want to go to Mars, and most people don't, just watch it. It's a tough gig, frankly. This would not be a luxury expedition. But you'd be able to watch it happen, and I think it would just be incredibly inspiring to the world in the same way that the Apollo program was inspiring to the world. And like I said, life can't just be about solving one problem or another. We need things that make us excited and inspired about the future, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, bravo to that. I love that sentiment, and I love the positivity in that message, and I just think it's something that we need to hear more of these days.
Okay, so we're now there, living at this place. You go there for the next couple, 3 weeks, you're going to devote, and then we have a team lined up. You think we have a team lined up to manage it, and then you would just do it the same way we do with SpaceX and Tesla, where you just attend the meetings regularly, say this is what we need to do. Do it.
Well,
this is what we need.
Yeah, my workload went up from about 70 to 8 hours a week to probably 120. Yeah, I go to sleep, I wake up, I work, go to sleep, wake up, work, do that 7 days a week. I'll have to do that for a while. So no choice. But I think once Twitter is set on the right path, I think it is a much easier thing to manage than SpaceX or Tesla. So, and I really understand the internet and how to make. So I wrote software personally for 20 years. I was one of the key people behind X.com, which became PayPal. And so also I'm aware of I know how to make a way better PayPal.
Because you built PayPal.
Yeah, very much. I mean, with a lot of other people, but there's a product plan I wrote, which I wish I kept a copy of in July of 2000, where I thought it would be possible to make the most valuable financial institution in the world. And we're going to execute that plan from 22 years ago, which amazingly no one has done. And so I think that's part of why I think Twitter will be ultimately extremely valuable, because I'm going to execute the X.com game plan from 22 years ago with some improvements. And we're also going to obviously make Twitter just a way better system. I mean, it stands to reason that if the social media company is not taking steps to make it positive to be on that social platform, then people won't come or they'll leave. To speak of sort of anti-Semitism or racism or anything like that. Well, I mean, who's going to stay on the platform if that's prevalent? Like that's obviously. Yeah, I mean, come on. It's inherent wrongness. Who's going to stay on the platform? So you want to be. It needs to be something where. Like our goal with Twitter is like, how do we get 80% of America? Maybe not like the sort of far left and the far right, and maybe we don't want them necessarily, but how do we get 80% of the public to join a digital town square and voice their opinion and exchange ideas and maybe once in a while change their minds? Yeah, I mean, once in a while.
All right, so let's pause there. So I know I said this is pretty much just going to be about Tesla, but I also said it's going to be about Tesla related. So why is this Tesla related? Well, it's simple. One, if you go back and you listen to it, Ron Barron talks about how, okay, so we have a team that you're going to put up and they're going to be in charge and they're just going to go work on Twitter. And Elon says, well, I'm still going to be part of it. We still have a lot of work to do to really get it there. But the point is, it seems like Ron already knows that they have essentially found a team, or they have an idea of a team of who's going to run this. So I just thought that was very bullish, or it's a good sign to see that for Tesla investors, even SpaceX investors, but really Tesla investors, because the majority of us are Tesla investors in the public markets. The other thing is that this channel is about investing, and so I thought it'd be interesting to hear kind of about the idea of the roadmap for Twitter. Right, we know low-hanging fruit of a social media. We know low-hanging fruit as far as maybe a YouTube rival, but this idea of this platform to become the best and most utilitarian financial application that exists, and it could be the most financially highest market cap financial company in the world. That's very interesting. And so because this channel is about investing, I thought, hey, let's at least show that part, because it's good to have on your radar. Twitter may go public again in 3 to 5 years, and it's just something to keep in the background, keep an eye on it, see how things are progressing, and see if when they go public, if it's something you want to invest in. None of this financial advice, just letting you know. SpaceX, odds are, will never go public, but Twitter more than likely will go public again. So just want to bring that to your attention in case you didn't really see that or you don't really care about it. At least knowing a little bit about the potential product roadmap, I think, is valuable just from a knowledge perspective.
Two other topics where you had some questions. The number one is logistics. So we're starting to make so many cars by the end of this year, 40,000 cars a week.
We have to be careful with MPI, but I believe I've said in the past publicly that our aspiration is to reach 40,000 a week by the end of this year.
So if we're doing that, then that means that we're producing a car every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And but that's still only 2 million cars a year. There's 100 million cars that are made a year. And so there's presumably capacity to be able to, logistics, to ship all these cars all over the place to have people pick them up where they want them. But not if they all do them in the same week.
Yes, totally. So, we had a bit of criticism from our Q3 results because we had a lot of cars in transit. And the reason was that we got too big for our cars to actually be transported in the final few weeks. We just weren't enough car carriers and weren't enough ships. So, but it's actually good in the long run to smooth out the deliveries and actually have cars in transit at the end of the quarter because then you're not rushing to get everything delivered by the end of the quarter and paying all these expedite fees. So
my question is, if we have autonomous driving and we have autonomous trucks, is that one of the ideas that we're going to be able to move things around with enough drivers that we're going to have autonomous transport?
Yes.
That's question one.
We can also, yeah, I mean, if you're in the area, have the car just drive to you.
That's one. And the other one is about materials. And when all of a sudden, so we have somehow navigated supply chain problems from other people. And you might have thought that it was the absolute brilliance that we had to be able to do that. But probably the reason is that when you start off and you don't make any cars a year, and you go to someone and say, we're going to make 20 million cars a year from zero, who's going to believe you and make all the equipment that we need? So as a result of that, you were forced initially to be able to say, okay, we're going to get, we'll vertically integrate. We can't rely on you. We'll do vertical integration. And
yeah.
Got it? Materials.
I can talk longer if you'd like.
Don't shoot messenger.
Talk a little bit longer. Materials. So we have geology. Anyone wants to show us a mine, we got people in mines who are knowledgeable, and they come to us and say, we can produce this much lithium, this much copper, this much.
Oh, yeah.
We are able to assess that and give contracts to be able to say contractual agreements. Okay, and they'll rely on our agreement. Other people, they won't. Is that Fair. And Glencore,
Well, the scaling constraints change as time goes by. In the beginning, we were just very vertically integrated because suppliers didn't take us seriously. Like we could get hardly any of the best suppliers wouldn't talk to us because a car startup has not been successful in the United States since Chrysler in the 20s, I believe they started. So it's been a century since a car company was successful in the U.S. That was not a foreign car company coming in that was very successful in the home market. So, but for an American car startup, it was Tesla's first success in 100 years. So you can imagine if you're an auto supplier, that doesn't sound like a smart financial decision.
Exactly.
So then we had to just build a lot of stuff ourselves, be vertically integrated, or we can create the car. And that ended up being an asset because now we understood so much about the entire supply chain and what it took to build a car. So we were able to design a more integrated vehicle that actually needed far fewer parts and costs less and weighs less and has higher performance. But it is looking increasingly like for some of the critical elements of batteries that Tesla will need to get into the mining business, mining and refining.
That's why Glencore was announced. That's why we're talking to Glencore. We were?
No, we've never contemplated investing in Glencore. I'm talking about Tesla doing it.
Ourselves?
Yes.
Can I have some questions from the audience?
All right, so that's the first time that we've heard Elon actually say that they'll get into mining and refining. They've sidestepped this left and right on the earnings call, and normally their phrasing is we will get into whatever the roadblock is, or whatever business, whatever impedes us from moving forward, we will get into that business and we will figure it out. This is the first time he's been very blunt about mining and refining, so that was refreshing. Also, if you noticed that lady that walked out a second ago, she was essentially telling them they have to wrap up, that they're done. And Ron's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll tell them we have time. We're going to do more. Remember, this is the Barron Fund. And it's funny because you'll see her come back out again and just try to listen. I know I have it on 2X. I'm sorry, but I want to get through this. But just try to listen to what she says, and then I'll talk about it a little bit later.
Just give me a couple. Turn the lights. 2 questions. I'll do it anyway.
Is it from me or you? I don't know.
All right, so she came out and she said, no, we got to wrap up. Or they said, we got to wrap up. We got to be done. And Elon looks at her and says, who's they? And her response, the powers that be. And I thought it was hilarious because this reminds me back to, again, the Andre Karpathy and Lex Friedman podcast, where Andre said, you need to have somebody at the top who can wield a hammer who's also smart. And right there, to me, that was a little sign of Elon wielding his hammer. It's like, who's they? Who is they telling us we have to wrap up? Like, this is our show, not they. Anyways, I just thought it was kind of hilarious. But it also shows you that, sometimes there is a bigger level of entity of things happening. And sometimes the bigger show is more impactful than the individual. But this is the problem with a lot of companies, is just that, is the red tape, the bureaucracy. Whereas there you have Elon saying, no, like, we're going to keep going. I don't know who they is, but tell them to F off. We're going to keep going. So anyways, I just thought it was funny. Now, listen to this next part. It's going to be a quick question. There was really 2 questions that were asked. The second one, in my opinion, silly question. But this first question is a great question, and Elon essentially just kind of mic drops the moment here. And as that ends, we'll just go ahead and end the video. So before we get into this last question, this last part, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that bell. I love you all. Enjoy your weekend, and let's listen to this last question.
Every genius has a touch of madness. I thought you'd like that quote.
Well, I agree with the madness part.
So even with Tesla, it's a publicly traded company. I think it's down 40% or something from its high, is selling at 70 times earnings. Meanwhile, Mercedes-Benz, which now produces EVs, is selling for 6 times earnings and yielding 5%. Why should I invest in Tesla rather than Mercedes-Benz?
Well, I actually rarely try to convince anyone to invest in Tesla. And many times I've recommended people don't invest in Tesla, and I've said our stock is too high, but then people just ignore me and keep buying the stock for some reason. But I think at a very high level, I'd say that autonomy is an insanely fundamental breakthrough, and no one is even close to Tesla for solving generalized autonomy or generalized self-driving vehicles. No one's even close. With self-driving, as I was talking about earlier, the car becomes roughly 5 times more useful, but it costs the same to build. Now, can you imagine what would happen if a company was doing like 25 to 30% gross margins, but suddenly that same thing was 5 times more valuable? What would that do to the value of Tesla and the value of that car? It boggles the mind, actually. If you think of net present value of future cash flows, if you actually do the math on that, it's insane. Then there's also the Optimus program, which is our humanoid robot, which we will leverage our manufacturing expertise and the intelligence we've developed for self-driving to have a useful humanoid robot. Now, the economy is fundamentally GDP per capita times capita. If you no longer have a constraint on capita because of a useful humanoid robot, it's not clear that there's any limit to the size of the economy. And these things will actually happen. So
Okay,
that's probably a good reason.
Yeah.
Okay, I lied. I'm back. Did you hear at the very end there? Someone said, a beautiful mind. I don't know if you guys heard that. Rewatch it. It's funny. All right. We are going to leave it there on that mic drop moment. Again, I love you all. Thank you. You stuck to the end. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your family. And I'll catch you guys on Monday. Maybe this weekend. Peace.